Welcome back to Faith and Work. If you joined us for part 1 last week, you heard how David and I's story began. The unexpected moments, the personalities, and the ways that God crossed our paths long before we understood what he was doing. Today is where that story really all comes together. This episode is the rest of the How We Met story, the conversations, the clarity, and the steps that turned 2 separate lives into one shared direction. It's still very lighthearted, very honest, and it helps you get to know us a little bit better. Sometimes God uses simple beginnings to prepare us for a story we haven't lived yet. This episode isn't about the struggles that came later. We'll share that next. But today is just how God brought us together, how we chose each other, and how the foundation was formed before life really tested it. So if you're walking through a season of waiting and wondering, or just enjoying the beginning of something new, we hope this conversation meets you right where you are. Let's jump back into the story.
And so I remember the previous night, Mandy was inching toward being late, and so I asked her, she said, hey, I might be late, and I said, some RAs are more strict than others. So I said, all right, so who's your RA? And she said, Carole. I said, oh, Carole. And I'm thinking, okay, Carole that we all helped get here to college, that we helped bring her here. I said, well, don't worry about her. She'll do anything I say. Of course, I was completely joking, but it's hard to convey that way. So I'm like, oh my goodness. So Mandy went home, must have told Carole. Carole did this as a joke, told my dad about it. My dad said, yeah, Dad gave me the impression that Carole was angry that I challenged her authority. So it happened to be church the next night.
Well, for the first time in over a year, I wasn't angry. I was actually joking. So his dad wasn't too far off. I had been mad, but this time I actually thought it was funny, and I was just playing a prank.
And so, I felt like I needed to apologize and explain myself. So I took my Christian Life Journal notes, ripped out a page, and I crafted this letter. I was very proud of it. It took me an entire church service to write. All right, look, 12/9/09.
Aww.
It's dated.
Oh, it's the 12th. That day just passed.
It is.
Aww.
How serendipitous.
Precious.
All right.
Precious.
So it goes like this, and this is the first time this has ever been read on air. We took it out of our memory box from over 15 years ago.
Yes, I have a whole memory box of stuff.
Yes. All right. Dear Miss Taylor, congratulations on your harmless prank. I was curious to know why Mandy was late, since she left with plenty of time to get back to her dorm. I now know that she was not late, but somehow you heard of our 15-minute laugh fest. Furthermore, I gather, from my attempt to rescue the gentle, innocent secretary, that the motivation of your little joke was something that I said about you being her RA. Since 85% of communication is nonverbal, it is difficult, perhaps impossible, for you to understand the meaning of what I said, just as it is impossible for me to understand the meaning of what you did. Truthfully, though I pride myself on having a good memory, and this took place last night, I cannot remember what I said. I do remember spending 15 minutes poking fun at everything with 3 dear friends, poking fun at myself, my family, my college, my office, and of course my friends. I did not intend and would not intend to ever undermine your authority as an RA. I realize that I have zero authority. I do have a small measure of influence gained over 13 semesters of dedication to the Lord and Crown College. I assume you know the story, if not ask Mandy, of your unique connection to the admissions office. The girls still tease me about it. I do recall telling Mandy in so many words, oops, I didn't see this on the back.
So on the back of the journal is like a little children's drawing, or like you were testing
How
an
dare you?
ink pen or something.
How dare you? That is modern art if I've ever seen it.
No, it just looks
so
like
I wrote,
you tested
oops,
a
I
pen.
didn't see this on the back. And so I put in so many words and in jest that I would be her advocate were she to get in trouble if she were a moment late. If I was out of line, I apologize. Put all things about the dorm out of your mind and have a Merry Christmas. Smiley face in Christ, David Evans, Mark 12:30.
So this was delivered via the hand of a mutual friend. And after church, she said, I was walking by her dorm and she was like, hey, I've got something for you. So she went inside and I followed her in and she said, this is a letter from David Evans. And I was like, what? And I was like, oh, I played a prank on him today. I wonder if he realized it. So I really didn't know if he had seen it, if Mandy had told him yet. I hadn't seen Mandy. Everyone was just busy all the time with classes and work and everything else. So I didn't know if he'd seen it. So I read it out loud to Kristen, and we laughed hysterically. And I said, oh my goodness, this is like and I think I even said that this is like a Jane Austen worthy Pride and Prejudice letter. Like, we just thought it was hilarious. So I immediately...
They are so mean.
I just
They're
thought
just
it was
all
funny.
mean.
Because it was all a prank, and he took it so seriously, like, furthermore, and it was just so serious. So
That's just how I talk.
I know, and I realized that now. But anyway, so we talked to each other on the phone, and
She called me.
I called him.
How'd you get my number?
I had it from the admissions office. I had to call you for student stuff.
That was sneaky.
Yeah. Well, anyway,
She called me.
I called him, and we talked for like an hour on the phone, and it was just about, like, first it was about the letter, and then it was about, what are you doing for Christmas? And then it was how's your semester been? And it was just, we just talked. And then
She would not hang up the phone.
That is totally not true. And so then a friend of mine came into the room. As an RA, I had a private room, which was the best benefit of being an RA by far. So a friend of mine came in the room, and she was like, who is that? And I said, it's David Evans. And she was like, oh. She was like kind of flipping out. It was Carrie. And I was like, what? And so anyway, I was like, I can't believe I'm talking to this guy. And I kept saying, like, okay, I gotta go. And I hung up the phone, and I was like, man, to be someone that I don't like, he's actually kind of nice. Like, I can't believe I talked to him for an hour, and it just felt like we weren't coming up with things to talk about. We weren't trying to keep the conversation alive. It just naturally flowed for an hour. And
yes, her words dropped as a honeycomb.
I couldn't believe it. And so I thought, well, that was interesting.
I brought the conversation to a close because I started to feel really awkward because I was pretty sure that she was talking with someone at the time. By the college rules, dating.
Yeah.
Like, this is getting a little awkward
and we
because she's
dating.
talking to me for so long. Well, it looked like you were.
We weren't dating. So
I went to my dad and I asked, and I said, yeah, I've talked to Carole. We talked for a while. And Dad said, oh, you blew it, man. You blew it. That ship has sailed. She's already got a boyfriend. You missed your chance.
Have a boyfriend.
No, he said that.
I know, but your dad is dramatic.
So I didn't talk to her over Christmas break, and I thought, you know what? I wasn't sure how serious it was, but I knew I would know in church if they were sitting together after break, that would be it. So sure enough, we go to church. And
after break is over. So
after break is over.
A month.
Right.
Yeah.
After a month. We never talked. Mm-mm. And I remember I was trying to get eye contact with her. I didn't know where she was. She wasn't in the choir that morning. She's usually in the choir. And so I remember walking out of church, and of course the couples all linger till the lights go off. And sure enough, I'm walking out. It's been about 5 to 10 minutes after the service. And I see the both of them sitting there close talking. I didn't know what they were talking about, but I remember looking at them and I thought, well, they're together. They're dating. Forget about it. It's over.
So I was not dating somebody else. There was a brother of a friend of mine.
But you can understand how it would appear that way, right?
Yeah, I can understand how it might appear that way. So there was a brother of a friend, really nice guy. And we sat together in church. I think we went out to eat one time, but we were not officially dating. I was not his girlfriend. He was not my boyfriend. It was nothing like that. Super nice guy. So over Christmas, I think we talked. I think I texted him or he texted me on New Year's. I don't think we talked on the phone at all over Christmas. It was just more and more evident that like we were not moving forward, and we were friends, and it was like, let's talk and see if we could be more than friends. And we were not more than friends. We were just friends. And so after church, I was like, hey, we're friends. Let's just remain friends. And he was like, 100% agree. I'm on the same page.
Now that was
it.
That was that same conversation.
That was the same conversation.
So the conversation that I witnessed was their breakup conversation with someone she wasn't dating.
No.
So if that's clear.
Yeah.
What happened after that?
So after that, that was in early January. And right around that time is when conversations started for Valentine banquet stuff. So the Dean of Women was, if you heard in season 1, if you heard me talk about mentors, the Dean of Women was Miss Gordon, who was a dear, dear, sweet friend. And she was the Dean of Women. And she came to me and she said, hey, I think someone is going to ask you to the Valentine banquet. And I was like, no. And I thought it was going to be like a freshman who just needed a date and wanted to go. And I said, Miss Gordon, at this point, I just turned 24. And I said, Miss Gordon, I don't want to go with a freshman. So I was 24 and I thought, I do not want to go with a freshman. Like, I don't want to. And a lot of RAs would just go because people in their dorm went. So I didn't want to go. And she said, I think you're going to want to go. And I just didn't want to. And she said, just go ahead and plan it.
Didn't you find out it was me?
And she said, no, I don't think I did. I think she hinted at it, but I didn't know for sure.
Okay, this started because I had been to the Valentine banquet, as you know, 5 times, and I missed the 6th time. I just said, I'm not going again. I've done my time. The next girl I go with, I'm actually going to have an interest in. And I kind of made that public because even the previous year, we were coming home on a van.
Yeah.
And they were all trying to hook me up with Carole.
Yeah.
My dad was driving the van. I was in the passenger seat. And I said as loud as I could, I'm not going this year.
Yeah, which was totally rude because everyone was like, Carole, are you going to go? And David was the only other single person in the van. And then he was so rude about it. He was like, no, I'm not going unless I really like somebody.
If we had gone too early,
So
Carole,
awkward.
this whole thing could have been ruined.
I know, but it was really rude the way you said it.
God works things out.
Anyway.
Well, I had to calm everybody down.
Anyway.
He's like 5th grade. Everyone match up. Everyone has a boyfriend.
Anyway.
All right, anyway.
Yeah.
So moving on, Miss Gordon comes in and she wants me to take a different girl to the banquet. And I said, Miss Gordon, I'm really I don't want to take another girl just to a social occasion. And I said, it needs to be a girl that I have some interest that there might possibly be a future in. And she said, well, who? And of course I'm thinking about Carole. Because I found out that they weren't together anymore. And in between this time, you and all the RAs came over to my parents' house. And that's when I really noticed Carole in a different way. And it wasn't romantic. It wasn't just the looks. It was just her demeanor, her attitude. She was the first one to get up and help clean up after the dinner was done. And just the way she interacted with everyone, I was just very impressed. And I told my parents about it. I'm like, you know what? I think, she's a really special girl. And I'd never done this in my life, but I had no social media. My mom had Facebook, and I looked her up on Facebook back when Facebook was at its peak. And I just wanted to see more about her life. And so I remember that, and I'm like, I'm kind of interested, but I've never pushed things forward. I've tried never to push things forward. And so I said, I had 3 girls that I just like, well, I'm not really interested in the other 2, but I wanted to see Miss Gordon's reaction. Like, well, I can't list Carole first and I can't list her last. So I put Carole in the middle. So I said 3 names and Carole was in the middle. And she immediately zeroed in and said, oh, I think you should ask Carole. So then she tells my father that I'm going to ask Carole, which I never said. And so my dad came up to me and said, you need to ask Carole. Miss Gordon told her you're going to ask her. And I got furious. And I said, Dad, I never said that. And I was this close to not asking her just to spite these matchmakers who were trying to push things that I was not ready for. So I end up, I just have to bite the bullet. Right. So she's walking through the Great Hall. I draw near to her. And,
draw near to me?
I do. It's a biblical phrase,
my
Carole.
word.
Calm down. I drew near and I mustered up the courage. And of course, you want to say this flowery speech, but sometimes, you trip things up. So I just said, Carole, would you like to go to the Valentine banquet with me? And what did you say, Carole?
I said, am I number 6 or number 7?
Oh, okay. That's going to die. I'm a teacher. My kids are doing this all the time. And I predict that the movement will die over Christmas because once all the uncool kids are doing it and the 5-year-olds are doing it, it is no longer cool. So it's already dying. But it is funny that she said 15 years ago, am I number 6 or number 7?
Yeah.
So I have to be a juvenile for just a moment.
But the funny thing is our son Eli is 6 and he finds ways to ask you questions that will end in 6, 7. So 6, 7 is a big deal for him. And we did not realize it until we were just talking about our story. And we realized that I said, am I number 6 or number 7, which is kind of funny. So
once again, Carole, it was destiny.
I know.
All right. So moving on. So she just decided to insult me at the first time I was ever vulnerable with her.
I thought it was going to be again. I thought he would laugh. But you didn't.
We had a
You didn't
lot to
laugh.
learn about each other's humor. Anyways. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to go for broke on this one.
Mhm.
I'm just going to pull out all the stops
Yeah.
and I'm just going to shoot for the moon. And so I told her I'd
did.
wear a different suit every day so she could pick one that she wanted. I
Yeah.
sneaked behind her back and I bought the tickets, and then I made sure that I bought her a corsage.
Mhm.
I wanted to buy my boutonniere, but she wouldn't let me. But I
Yeah.
did find out, because I had a vast network of operatives who was doing her hair, and I
Yes.
paid for that.
There was just a girl in the dorm. It was
Ahead
a
of time.
friend, Ashley
Mhm.
Rice. She did my hair.
Mhm.
And she said, hey, David paid me to do your hair. And I said, what? And she said, well, he wanted to take care of all the expenses so you didn't have any expense. And I was like, oh my word. Like, it was so nice and a little creepy that you found that out, but I thought it was kind of nice. And then,
So we went on the banquet,
Yeah.
and I decided that I had this idea long ago, never
Mhm.
did it. And I said, I wanted something on this date, because this was now not just a social, this was an actual date. I wanted something that appealed to all her senses. So I got her Godiva white chocolates.
my favorite.
And then I burned, back when you used to do that sort of thing,
Mhm.
an Il Divo CD.
Which we both liked, El
Right,
Divo.
right. And so I took the whole package apart, slid that in there.
Mhm.
And that was an initial gift that she saw to
Yes.
open. When she took
Mhm.
that back in, I gave something else. I made her a Kawasaki origami
Yes, which I
rose.
still have. Let me get
Oh,
it.
you still have it?
I do.
Oh,
I
it's
do.
a little crushed.
So it's a little bit crushed, but there's this rose.
It
and you
looks
can
so
hold
much
this part.
better. It's smushed.
I know. It's okay. It's
I
so
spent
pretty.
3 hours on this.
Okay. And then there was this little stand that the
Yes.
rose went on.
Yes.
So on top, and this was not, I didn't know about this part. So all I knew was I got a box of Godiva chocolate, which
Is the poem in there too?
yeah, poems are there too. So it's a huge box of chocolates, and Godiva chocolate is not cheap. And we were college students. We were very, very poor. And so anyway, there's this little poem. So when I got back from our date, there was this beautiful
I'll set it.
Kawasaki rose, and it was obviously hand done. And I was like, who the heck is this guy? And he had this rose, and then there was this little poem attached with a heart paper clip on the poem. Like, it was so extra. It was a lot. So read the poem to everybody.
Yes, and don't forget that it's a red paper clip, and the hole punch is actually a heart
Yes,
punch.
it's a lot. Like, there's so
And
much going on.
so I wrote her an original poem about this flower,
Mm-hmm.
and I wrote 3 versions of it.
Yeah.
This took me a whole nother church service. It was very spiritual at the time. But the one that I ended up with, I don't have to look at it because I still have it memorized. So regarding this little paper flower, I wrote this, and I said, only a piece of paper, little money spent, and why a flower that has no scent? There is a treasure one should not trade. This is a flower that will not fade.
And it was a lot. And then he wrote me a note with the CD. So I didn't know there was a CD until I opened the box of chocolate. So I opened the box of chocolate, and inside it said, my favorite songs are like song 3 and 6, I think it was.
It was 6 and 9, I believe.
Okay, 6 and 9. And they were like the love songs on there. And I was like, oh, okay. And I mean, they were beautiful songs, but it was a little shocking. I was like, oh, they're love songs. And then there was this flower on my desk that he had given that part to someone else in the dorm, and they put it in my room so it'd be waiting for me when I got back to the room. So everything you could possibly think of, like there was something to read, something to listen to, something to taste. Like, it was so much, and it was very, very sweet.
I'd been holding back for years.
Well, it was very sweet. He thought of so much, and that was our first date. I think it was the first weekend in February.
It was. And we
And
both felt great afterwards.
we did.
And then we started actually dating.
Mhm.
So that I guess that was a hard launch. Is that what all the kids
Yeah,
call it these
hard
days?
launch. Hard launch.
I'm
That's a
not sure
hard
that
launch.
term existed 15
No,
years
it did
ago.
not. So I was after, I think it was Super Bowl Sunday.
Right. So
You
we
asked me to
started
be your
dating, and that's when
girlfriend.
all the sappy stuff happened. She started writing me notes. We could tease each other, talk openly. And we would do silly things. She'd be in the
Mhm.
bookstore, and I would pay for her drink, or I would leave and
Yes.
have the barista give her a drink
After he left.
after she
was so
left. She
sweet.
loved London Fog, so I made
Mhm.
sure she
I
had
still
plenty
love
of
him.
those.
Mhm.
And I of course, when you're in love, you do stupid things,
Mhm.
right? And so I I wrote her, I could write demerits, all that authority.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote her 50 demerits and I made them official and I put them in her mailbox and she opened them up. What you
Yeah,
think, Carol?
you wrote me, I think I still have that somewhere too. He wrote me 50 demerits for being way too cute. And I got demerits in my mailbox and I was like, I never get demerits in my mailbox. And I opened them up and it just made me smile, made me laugh. And all of my girlfriends thought that was the sweetest thing. And he was so sweet. And they loved it.
And then she was in the dorm, and anytime that she needed something, I made sure that she got what she needed.
Yeah. So one time I was sick and he said, do you need anything? And I said, maybe some bottles of water and cough drops. Like, I'm good. I just need some cough drops. And he went and bought me 3 massive bags of different brands.
It was 5.
Five bags of cough drops. And then many cases of water?
I'm sorry. It was 3 different kinds of cough drops and 5 different cases of
different
water.
brands. So it was like Fuji,
Smart Water,
yeah,
Dasani,
5
Deer Park,
different brands. Because he's like, I didn't know what brand you liked. I'm like, it's just water. Like, it doesn't matter. And it was so sweet and so kind. He did that with several other things. He would say, what do you need from the store? And I'll pick it up for you and drop it off. And he always went like just above and beyond. He always did this extra stuff. And it was so very kind. He was always a very kind person. David, I learned later that in dating him, there was so many things about his personality that I really underestimated. And because he does have a really big personality, sometimes he can be really, really goofy and he could be really, really embarrassing.
We used to be eating in the lunch hall and I would pull her chair next to mine.
It was so embarrassing. So we would be sitting like in these metal chairs and I would be like a foot or 2 away from him, like around the table, sitting at a round table, and he would pull it like really close. He's like, why don't you come a little closer? And I would get like,
I just
so
wanted to know that I wanted to be close to her. I thought it was romantic.
I was mortified, embarrassed.
So I had a lot to learn, first time being in love. But I never used those super high power charged 3-letter words.
Yeah.
Because I knew I couldn't handle saying it to more than one person. I'd been saving that for my whole life. I began praying for my wife when I was 12. I knew I was saved and I knew that I didn't trust my own judgment to make that decision on my own. I remember reading the story about Adam and how he fell asleep and God brought the woman unto the man. And I just prayed since I was 12, Lord, you just have to bring her my way, whatever you want. I didn't know God would take so long, but I got to tell the world that the right one is worth the wait. Definitely worth the wait. And so I felt that way, but I wasn't ready to say it because I had a brilliant plan. I said, well, she'll come back from the summer trip. I'll tell her I love her, and we'll get engaged over Christmas, and we'll have a nice spring wedding. But now Carole's impulsiveness and anyway, changed the timeline. So I asked her, I said, do you love me? And what did you say, Carole?
I said, I don't want to say it first because I didn't want to be like super oversharing, but I did love him with as much love as I could have. Thinking about how the love that I had for him then and the love I have for him now is totally different. But at the time, I loved you as much as I could have loved you. And going away and traveling over Europe for the summer, I didn't want to have those feelings and not tell you about those feelings. And so I wasn't trying to pressure him.
There would have been many awkward phone conversations.
I also didn't know about.
Hope to see you.
I also didn't know his timeline he had in his head. I didn't know he was planning on saying anything at the end of the summer. I didn't know he was planning on a Christmas engagement. I didn't know any of that. I just knew how I felt, but I did not want to be the only one that was like, I think I'm in love with you, and then be the only one that says it. So
I took her to another room. And I got on one knee and no, I'm just kidding.
I was like, you did not.
I went to the other room. I grabbed my Bible and I read her 1 Corinthians 13, all about love. Mm-hmm. And then I told her that I loved her. And then she said she was so in love with me.
I did.
And I said, Carole, you realize how important this is because in my mind, there's no going back from that.
Yeah.
And I said, in my mind, this means that we're going to spend the rest of our life together because we both love each other that way. And so as soon as she got back from her summer trip, I took her up to the place where my father grew up off Lake Skaneateles. It's one of Carole's favorite places.
Yeah,
There's
I
these
love it.
beautiful war gardens there and a beautiful lake. And so we had a lovely engagement dinner. She wasn't supposed to know, but when my mother comes out and says, "Oh, you look so beautiful."
Beautiful. And she
I
was
know, I'm like,
crying, and I was
yeah.
like, I'm pretty sure this
Good
is
work,
this is
Mom.
it.
And so after that we go and I get on one knee and once again I compose this beautiful speech, but instead I thought I'd keep it simple and just tell her that I loved her. I asked her to marry me, and she said yes. And there happened to be a tour boat, the Judge Ben Wiles, the
Yes.
famous Judge Ben Wiles of Skaneateles. They had seen there was some light where we were in that garden. It was at night,
Yeah.
but I think they saw me on one knee, and then when we stood up and we hugged, the ship began honking the horn and everything.
It was so sweet.
And so we went home after we got engaged, and the whole family was waiting in the house. And my grandmother, who's 80 years old on a pacemaker, and she comes up in her pure British accent and asks Carole, "How did it go?"
And I didn't, again, know a lot of like their humor. And I just said, I told him I'd have to pray about it. And I just waited like 5 or 6 seconds. I didn't say anything, and everyone got really, really quiet. And then I said, no, I'm just joking. Of course I said yes. And they had the ring. Of course I had the ring on. And it was David's mother's ring. So it was a family ring, and it was a really big deal. And anyway, we all started laughing. I felt terrible. I just thought when I said that, everyone would know I was joking, but they didn't.
You know what, Carole? As I review the minutes of our story, I'm starting to think that your humor
I know.
has not worked out the greatest.
It's not.
Why don't
It's
you just
really
leave the
not.
humor to me?
Yeah.
All right? And
Yeah, I probably should.
I'm, of course, kidding. You know, she still played pranks on me after we were married. Although, when she came home, I would hide. When we were newlyweds, I would hide in the house, and she'd walk in. She'd be like, "David, where are you?" And, you know, she knew I was in the house, but I'd still scare her every
all
time.
the time. Yeah, all the time.
All right. Anyway, so we got engaged, and that was
Engaged in
right at the
August.
end of the summer.
Yeah.
And then we started planning our wedding. I was a first-year teacher. Carole was working a job. We had one car. I disappeared every night remodeling this dirt house that we bought for dirt cheap. I never lifted a finger for the wedding. And I was literally late to our rehearsal dinner, grading papers so it could be done and we could go on our 2-week honeymoon.
Yes.
And Carole did everything. It was perfect. I only had two words to say, "I do." And I messed him up.
Messed it up.
You see, Carole's
It was the
dad
best.
is very... he's a wonderful person, and he was giving the vows, but he must, I don't know if he was emotional, but he was talking very slow.
And it was very slow and
purposeful.
purposeful.
So he starts going, and then he says, "We are here to see, David, if you will take this woman to be your wife." And there was this awkward pause. Well, I didn't want anyone to think that I had cold feet, so I said, "I do." And he says, "No, not yet." And
Everyone
I'm
laughed.
like, well,
it
goodness
was great.
sake.
It kind of
It lightened
brought,
the mood.
it brought a little
Mistakes
light. It was
that
good.
worked, go figure.
Yeah,
So
it was good.
So we've been married for over 15 years now.
Well, 15 years, December 18th.
So it's coming up,
Yeah.
in 6 days. We will have been married for 15 years, and it's been a wonderful journey. And we're going to stop this now because we've learned a lot since we've been married with each other, and we've had some trials we've gone through, and we do want to, maybe our story can help some other people who deal with some things they're going through.
Yeah, so we really wanted, for Faith and Work in the podcast, we typically talk about all things work related and things around work. And sometimes our marriages can be impacted by our jobs. And sometimes our jobs by our marriages. And so for both of us, we both started working. You were already working. And then I was working but changed jobs just a few months after we got married. And so later on, the newlywed stage, of course, was wonderful. It was great. And then life and work got a little bit more stressful. And then we had our first baby boy. And then we had our second baby boy. And life got even more stressful. And we were both being pulled in different directions. His job got more stressful. My job got more stressful. And we really went through a lot. We went through some difficult seasons. But before we got into that, we didn't want to just jump right into the difficult. We wanted to kind of first set the stage with a little bit about who we are as a couple and kind of how we met, how we got together, so that we could kind of set the foundation for that other episode that will come up. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am so thankful that you're here. Thank you for listening. And babe, thank you for coming on here. I know this was not your favorite thing.
I speak in public all day long. I'm a teacher. I'm able to preach sometimes. but I just love speaking to people, not into a microphone. So she's been wanting me to do this a while, and I hope our story can encourage someone.
Yeah.
So thank you for listening.
There's so much about David's personality that if you just meet him and you only know him from the teacher perspective, you might not understand. And so I wanted you to kind of get to know him a little bit more. But thank you so much for joining us. I hope you can join us again next week to hear more of our story.
As we close out the story of how we met, we want to say this: beginnings are beautiful, but they're only the start. Looking back, it's easy to see how God was at work in the early moments, in the timing, in the conversations, even the moments of uncertainty. But what we didn't know was how much growth and refining in faith would be required after the honeymoon was over. In our next episode, we're going to start to share that part of our story. The valleys, the hard conversation, the seasons when we had to choose each other again and again, and the ways that God met us in places that we didn't expect, strengthening what He had already begun. If you're in a marriage or hoping for one or walking through a season where faith feels tested rather than celebrated, we want you to know that you're not alone. God doesn't just bring people together. He walks us through the work that it takes to stay together. So thank you for listening. Thank you for walking through this story with us and laughing with us and trusting us with something so personal. We hope that you'll join us next time as we share more about how faith carried us through the really hard parts of our story and how God proved faithful even in the valleys. Until then, remember this: the story God is writing in your life doesn't stop at the beginning, and it won't stop in the middle either.